Our bodies are equipped with some amazing pathways for detoxification, but sometimes those channels become a little bit overwhelmed and we need some support. Well, that's exactly what our guest has spent the last 30 years doing. She's an expert practitioner and lead instructor of the International School for Colon Hydrotherapy. This is the story of cleansing colonics with Cathy Shea. Cathy, so great to have you on.
Oh, I'm so honored and privileged. I'm excited to be on your show, Casper, and I acknowledge what you're doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We're excited to have you. And I was fortunate enough to meet you in person. Unlike many of my guests that I meet the first time doing these in the digital world, we met in Florida at a Dr. Rao seminar, a little talk he was giving. And I met your husband as well, who's a wonderful practitioner himself, a doctor. And as I understand, he's the one that taught you how to perform colon hydrotherapy. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. We were talking colonics on our first date.
That must have been an interesting first date.
Here we are in Palm Beach, right, having this gourmet meal at this glitzy restaurant. And he was just going on and on about his background and told me he had the Colorado School for Colon Therapy. Well, I had just finished having my first cleanse. I did
Mm.
3 colonics a week for 3 weeks. And I knew immediately he was the man for me. So 6 months later, I asked him to marry me.
Colonics in love, right? That's what always gets. It's those unique stories that I love to hear that bring people together. But what was it about colonics that really brought you into the field and turned you into such an expert on it?
Hmm. Well, I have to show you a picture of what my mouth looked like before and
Ooh,
after.
those are a lot of amalgams.
A lot of amalgams and 5 root canal teeth.
Mm.
Casper, I was going down fast. I was 30 years old and I could barely get out of bed. And this is long before anybody looked in your mouth to see what was going on. So I was very blessed to be divinely guided to a naturopathic doctor here in Florida, my own Dr. Phil. And he did what is called applied kinesiology. It's a muscle testing technique for diagnosis. And all he did was touch my tooth, touch my liver, and he said, "You're full of heavy metal." You can see it.
Hmm.
And of course, I never made that connection because I had spent my entire teen years in the dental chair after school. And he said, "Your liver is so congested." Thomas Rao would say, "Your barrel is overflowing with the heavy metals and probably many other toxins." So he had colon therapy in his office. He had a young man working there by the name of John, gave me my first treatment, super gentle. And this was a woman who was a high-powered real estate agent wearing silk suits, driving a Cadillac, and selling million-dollar homes in Palm Beach. And when I crashed and burned and couldn't get out of bed, it was devastating for me, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and certainly financially. I can promise you that after that first series of 3, because I always remind people, this colon of ours is tall as long as we are tall. So I'm 5'8". I had a 5'8" colon, like you see here in this orange apron. It took 3 just for me to start the process, as you mentioned, of opening the detox pathways. And it started with the liver, because what most people don't know is that this colon first job is to absorb water. So colon hydrotherapy is to hydrate the colon with a lot of water. From there, it goes directly to the liver. So colon hydrotherapy is actually liver cleansing. The liver let go, made more bile, which is mostly water. I started feeling better right away. The headaches went away. The sleep pattern improved. And then I was charged with tackling, okay, how do I clean out my mouth? Because you can't just go to any dentist, folks. Please don't go to any dentist and have the metal taken out of your teeth. This is a specialty field called biological dentistry. And you can look for a practitioner and a good dentist on the website IAOMT.org. And I'm sure that Casper knows this group. I've actually trained many of these dentists, one in the Philippines, one in California, because they understand that once you start taking this out of the teeth, it's not just there. I had been swallowing the residue of heavy metal for 20 years. I had been breathing the mercury vapors. There's a YouTube channel that shows this in an infrared light. You can actually see the metal vapors. I had chronic lung problems and never, had a cigarette in my mouth. So the interesting part about what colon hydrotherapy did for me was it opened a whole new world, Cass. And it was a world that I knew about because I was changing diapers. That's me and my baby brother. This is my family of 10. I was going on 7 years old when I first started changing diapers. And this was long before disposable. He was born in 1960.
Mhm.
No gloves. We just took the poopy diapers and dumped them into the toilet, threw them in a bin, and my brother took it down to the basement. And of course, lots of Clorox. So I was exposed to a lot of metal. And I grew up in Pittsburgh, lots of steel mill activity. So my toxic burden was so off the charts. And as divine order prevails, I was led to Thomas Rowell. First thing he did was put a meter in my mouth, electric meter, and the needle buried. He said, "No wonder you're so sick. You have so much metal everywhere." That's the first thing we have to do is take this stuff out. So I started the process, and it is ongoing. What I want to impress upon the listeners is Michael and I have been required to adopt what we call a cleansing lifestyle. Routine, gentle cleansing is so vital in the culture that we live in, the chemical culture. I also follow another medical doctor. You might know him, Zach Bush,
Sure.
ZachBushMD.com. I'm going to be doing an experiential workshop with them, his cohort tomorrow as a member of that group. Zach Bush is laying it out there with all the chemicals, and he's pounding the glyphosate Roundup thing. So between Thomas and Zach Bush, I continue to learn more and more to pass on to my team in 35 countries so that they can pass it on to all these other people around the world. And of course, that's where I do my stand-up, is in the classroom.
Nice.
And I channel Rosanna Thana. She was Gilda Radner's alter ego on Saturday Night Live. For those of you who don't know it, just go to YouTube and look up Gilda Radner and you will fall down laughing. I have the wig, I have the glasses, I have the whole costume because I never thought about going on stage, but I realized that God gave me the classroom as my stage. And learning has to be fun, right?
It does. Absolutely. And you're
It's
taking
all
a subject that many don't find fun, but I find it you need to humanize it. We need to humanize medicine again. Yes, we're going through lots of illness and suffering and everything, but if you humanize it, and part of the human experience is to laugh and enjoy. So we got to be able to
absolutely.
do that as well. So thank you for your work as a stand-up comedian and a practitioner. Now, a lot of people will understand, okay, colonics is detoxifying, but what's actually going on and what am I going to experience? Because so many people have not. It has a little bit of a taboo that you're doing something from the other way of what most people are used to, inserting things into them. And that for some is scary. I mean, for others, we may understand that we have this body and you could do so many things with it that will help it regardless of the entry level. So talk about what is the process and what one can expect going through a session with you.
Okay. Well, I have to go back to my childhood again because what I'm sharing is what I call grandmother's wisdom. Because I'm going to be 70 this year, so I'm old enough to be a grandmother. And I don't have any kids of my own, but I have thousands of students and certainly 55 nieces and nephews from my siblings. So it's been so much fun to tell my nieces and nephews the story of their great grandmother. My grandmothers, both of them, had the enema bag on the back of the bathroom door, 24/7, 365. It didn't matter whether you complained about a sore throat, a headache, a bellyache. The first thing they did, because it reduces fever quickly, was give us an enema. Warm water in the rectum. Wasn't the most pleasant, but then she'd put you in bed and she'd rub your tummy and give you a little sip of tea and you fall asleep in the arms of somebody who loves you. I carry that heritage I carry that wisdom of the grandmother when something that simple can be implemented to help reduce symptomology and boost the immune system. So when you go to CathySheaSchool.com and you click at the top right, and it says more, and it drops down, you say find a therapist, you're going to see these people in 35 countries that you can trust, because we have developed the most gentle, guaranteed, comfortable colonic. And it's because of my husband, God bless him. We are very clear that this autonomic nervous system of ours is what's dictating all these automatic functions, like blinking your eyes and breathing while you're sleeping, the digestive process. So we have bumper stickers. We made one that says, the more we relax, the more we release. So when I'm sitting on these airplanes traveling around the world, speaking the gospel of cleansing, and somebody next to me sees that I'm reading a book, oh, what do? I finally figured out what to say. I say, I teach people how to relax. Because if you can't relax, you can't digest.
That's right.
When your adrenals are pumping cortisol, you're in fight or flight. You're not thinking about what's for dinner. And you're certainly not going to the store to buy vegetables. You're looking for a drive-through just to kill the hunger.
Yeah.
So the colon hydrotherapy that we teach and we offer people is based on how their nervous system responds, which is how we know how to pace it. The speculum is big around as a dime. Most people defecate big around as a quarter, maybe even bigger if they don't go every day. There should be no pain with the insertion of the speculum, and we can help them do it themselves if they want. Why not? Let's empower them, inspire them, encourage them. Of course, we use a really good lubricant. I got a gal that comes to me, she's almost 90, and she's, Cathy, just give me the slickest stuff you got. I said, okay, I can do that, Francis. But she'll reach around and she'll put it in herself with my hand helping her, because this is not just a physical process, it's a psychological process. And we have a culture that's riddled with shame around something everybody does. And if you don't, you're in big trouble. Right. Constipation is such a huge problem. Stagnation in this system creates all the metabolic backup. We're designed to be flowing, self-regenerating all the time, just like the weather. So we help people connect with nature. This is what the other reason why I love Zach Bush. He's teaching a lot about our true nature is in nature. Well, guess what? I've never seen a bird that was constipated. I've seen dogs that are, because they're being fed junk. But I've never seen a squirrel in my yard that was obese or constipated. They're in nature. They're in the natural world. So we eat from the natural world. I'm not vegan, but I am very, very clear about my discipline, not deprivation. Love a little bit of fresh fish because I live in a beautiful fish environment, fresh fish from our ocean here, which is relatively clean compared to others. And we have a lovely CSA, community supported agriculture, where we buy all our greens and support our local farmer. And yeah, we go to Sprouts and we go to Trader Joe's, we go to Whole Foods, and we buy what we need as much as possible organic. So eating from the natural world is about 80 to 85% of what we do. And if my husband was sitting next to me, he'd say, yeah, but give me a ribeye tonight, babe.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, he loves it. He's a carnivore. He doesn't do it every night, but when he's ready for a burger, look out.
Yeah. Every once in a while.
So the variety, it's, we've been hearing a lot about biodiversity on the planet. We're losing it. And guess what? It's happening in us as well. The microbiome requires diversity. So everywhere we go, we look for the different vegetables, the different fruits. The current guideline is to try to get 30 different fruits and vegetables in your body per week. So if you just divide that by 6 days, that's only 5 a day. It's doable. Because on one day of the week, we do anything we want. And knowing that takes the pressure off of this whole deprivation thing. We're not on a diet.
Yeah.
The diets don't work. If they did, there'd only be one book, Casper.
Yep.
So he trained me, and here I am, going on 70, teaching colon therapy, teaching people how to relax so they can release and enjoy their life.
How many people do you find that have issues with their colon that come to you? Is it a high percentage of people that have some sort of issues, or some coming more in this healthy preventive state?
Well, the people who come to me, 100% of them have issues.
Yeah.
That's why they look for me.
Right.
That's why they're trying to find help, because the over-the-counter stuff, gives them a temporary hit, and laxatives cause nerve damage. They stop working. And this whole system is designed miraculously with its own enteric nervous system. It's independent from the brain. And it talks to the brain through the vagus nerve, which is the autonomics that go up that chart. So the gut-brain, head-brain connection is now a topic of all kinds of science. Of course, I've seen that since day one. But what's cool about this research is they're finding that the communication line is 80% up, 20% down. So yes, when you get that urge to go to the bathroom, the signal goes from your gut, your rectum through your gut, up your vagus nerve to your brain, and you have to go, okay, where's the nearest toilet? And a behavior has to follow. But most people are too busy. And they have what is called functional constipation. This is a medical term. It means they don't listen to the first signal, when they feel like they need to go to the bathroom. Well, what ends up happening, Casper, is that the signal gets weaker and weaker and weaker. So what we teach people is how to trust their body and listen to the signals. That's embodiment practice. But more importantly, can my body trust me?
Yeah.
To honor those signals. Go sit on the toilet. Go drink my water. At least 2 of these liters a day, minimum, purified water. Pinch of pink salt, you got all your minerals. So it's actually quite simple once you know what to do. And that's the other thing Michael has taught me. He's got such a Mensa brain, he's a science researcher, and he takes all these polysyllabic words and he narrows it down into something I can understand, because I've got to be able to teach Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Jones and my students who come in, so that they can translate that into information that someone else can really get. So he distills it down for me as my curriculum director, and we make sure that people have ample time. We always do a Zoom before they come in, so we get to know, we hear their questions, we reassure them, we form a relationship. And then the next bumper sticker says, slowly is holy. So we move very, very slowly through the process, explaining everything we're doing, giving them the power to say, Kath, I'm done with this. I'd rather be in the toilet. Yes. Just connect them, put them in the toilet. Everything's disposable. There's no contamination. Everything's contained. They can go to my YouTube channel and see safe, closed system, see how it all connects and how it works.
Could you speak to that? Could you speak to the closed versus open system? I've heard both. I'm not even sure of the difference myself. So educate me, please, as to the differences.
Okay. Thank you for asking that, because I've experienced both. I think it's incumbent upon me as an instructor to know both, because of course I had clients and students. Had a long conversation yesterday with a young woman who has an open system, wants to take my training. Will it be something valuable? I said, absolutely, because I'm teaching basic principles, not just procedures. The closed system, everything's contained in tubes that connect the body to the device on the wall. You can control the pressure, you can turn it off, you can control the temperature, you can pause. There's much more control as we track the nervous system. The open system is like a reclining chair with a small speculum that goes in, and the water goes constantly circulating in the rectum, and you have to push the feces out around that tube. So it goes against what we teach regarding relaxation. Most people who have hemorrhoids, have a habit of pushing, They can burst, they can bleed. This is dangerous. We wouldn't touch them in either case with either of these systems. But these are also people that push through life. So it's a metaphor for behaviors. And of course, the releases that happen, whether it's an open or a closed system, give such a sense of relief because it's also a metaphor of letting go.
Mm.
This is the unconscious nervous system, as Dr. Rao would call it. It's below the radar. I could write a book on the stories and the secrets that have been told that people remembered when this system wakes up, Casper, and they let go and they finally release and they go, gosh, I've never told anyone this before. So we teach what is called therapeutic relationship skills. It's not my job to psychoanalyze anybody. It's my job to hold sacred space for them when these stories come forward, whether it's about a rape or an abortion or whatever. We've heard so much. And that unconscious nervous system that has pushed that shadow material down very often will emerge. And basically, they start crying. We give them a tissue. We hold their hand and we just look at them and say, I'm so sorry you had to experience this. So this slow, gentle titration of water is only possible with the closed system.
Understood. Now,
and I will end
please.
that question with another piece that's vital. I have several therapists that I've trained who have both systems, one of whom is wildly successful with para and quadriplegics and stroke victims and people who don't have that ability to make that gut brain head brain connection because of a neurological issue. The open system shines with these people. Really helps them a lot.
That's good to know the differences and that there are benefits there of both.
Definitely.
Yeah. As far as that understanding, you mentioned that some people, hemorrhoids and others, are not good candidates. Are there other people with, let's say, irritable bowel syndrome or other things that wouldn't be good candidates?
Absolutely. We teach the whole list of contraindications. Certainly would never touch a pregnant woman.
Mm-hmm.
We would never touch anyone with congestive heart failure. They're already having a difficult time shunting their fluids. Kidney challenges, all that fluid goes in. It's the kidney system that's also being flushed. If they can't move that out, it could be dangerous. So these contraindications are important, and everyone is required to be medically cleared before they come to my school or come into my office. Because by license in Florida is the only state that has a license for colonics through the massage board. So I went to school for massage in Colon. The other states we're doing what is called national board certification. But by license, I can't even take blood pressure. Uncontrolled blood pressure could be dangerous as well. So we have the lower thing and let them take it themselves as a way to stay in our scope of practice, maintain our professional boundaries, and make sure it's safe. But they should have already had a doctor check that and sign a release before they come to me. It's a good question. Thank you for that, because not everyone is a candidate.
But it sounds like a number of people with, because I feel that many people, whether it's diverticulitis, Crohn's, all these other issues, may say, well, I don't want to do that because I already have inflammation there and possibly this may disrupt it more. So they kind of stay away from that. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that my years of experience have shown that I have great success with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, because this is a condition of the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
I am much more interested, Casper, in helping teach people how to relax and give them hydration.
Yeah.
This is the focus of our Shea Waves Flow Fill brand and exclusive methodology. IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, is another condition that very often when they're in flare-up, they're in the emergency room. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're having mucus and blood come out of their bodies. They're in an acute attack, whether it's Crohn's, colitis. Diverticulitis is actually not in that category, but it could be, depending on the literature you read. Diverticulitis is when there's a pocket that bursts, like a little bubble that comes through, and the feces hangs out in that little pocket. And with time, it can just putrefy and create an infection. I have seen the little marble balls come out of my own body because I have been diagnosed with diverticulosis, which is the condition of having this. Most people do, especially between 50 and 90. It's just what I call normal wear and tear, like the aches and pains of my knees and my hips and all that other stuff. And the silver hair, it shows I've been around. Okay. But I've been washing those little pockets out of my body once a month. I give myself a colonic. Mm. I'm preventing the itis. So diverticulosis is the condition of having the pockets, very common. It's when the infection occurs, diverticulitis, that they need medical care. So we would never work on anyone with an acute condition like that. They're going to be in a lot of pain. They're going to need medical care. And yet, just yesterday, I found research from Queensland, Australia. They have isolated 5 bacteria in the microbiome that not only reduce the inflammatory condition with IBD, but they excite the anti-inflammatory natural killer cells. This is the kind of stuff I read because I'm so excited that they're finally going to, isolate these 5 somehow and create a nice little nutraceutical out of it. That's a fancy name for a natural pill. And hopefully that'll get to the marketplace so that these people won't have to suffer. And if they take these 12 gut irritants out of their diet, they'll feel better already. They'll lose a little weight. Their belly fat will go down because this is the marker, right? The abdominal fat is a big marker for metabolic syndrome. So these top 12 gut irritants is where everybody starts when they work with us. And this we learned from Thomas Rowell, of course. Don't even think about dairy or sugar or alcohol and gluten. Forget it.
Well, that's a big part of everyone's diet these days are these irritants, right? So much of it. So of course, it's incredibly important what we eat, and like you mentioned, how we eat as well, in a parasympathetic state that allows us to digest well. So that's incredibly important. Something people miss, only focusing on what, and then eating stressed out, not with gratitude, in a rush, not chewing, all these things. When we talk about hydrotherapy, we're obviously using water, you said. Is there a specific water or liquid solution that you're using? Are there different versions of a purified versus something in it?
Thank you for that question because it speaks to our device. Okay. This closed system that I work with and I actually distribute to our people so they can get set up in their practice comes with a 3-stage filtration system. So it doesn't matter whether you're on a well in the countryside or living in a metropolitan area that has tons of chemicals. The water through my system is purified. It's drinkable, it's potable. So if you're going to find a colon hydrotherapist outside the Shea group, that would be a first question. How do you purify? How do you filter the water? Can you send me a photo? There are a lot of people who are not filtering their water. Are you using disposable tubing and kits? Is everything thrown away? There are still therapists. Most of them are actually in New York City, I'm sorry to say, using stainless steel and rubber tubing. It scares me. Because that's all there was back then. When my husband started this in the 80s, you had an autoclave, just like the dentists use for their instruments, and you dipped it in Clorox and threw it in the autoclave. Well, I hope that's what they're doing. But the tubing itself is another matter.
Right.
So everything we use is disposable. And the water purification is crucial. Just like you wouldn't drink tap water without filtering it, I hope.
No.
But so many people do. Pastor, they come to me.
Don't get me started on that, Cathy.
I know. It's scary. I'm working with a wealthy, educated population. They're driving up here in Mercedes and Teslas, and they're dripping in gold and Gucci bags, and they're feeding their kids goldfish, those little cracker things.
Yep.
And that's all the kids will eat. I said, wait a minute. Who bought the goldfish?
Exactly. Those kids don't have the money to do that yet.
They're not old enough to even go to the store.
Exactly.
It's just amazing. So you spoke to it beautifully. It's not just what we eat, it's how we eat. It's not just what we're shopping for. It's the intention that we're holding that's to nourish and nurture. And we have a huge deficiency, especially in the children, because they're not taught how to shop and chop and prepare and cook like my grandmother taught me. She gave me the butter knife and I could cut the banana. I
Mm.
was on a step stool. I don't know, 4 or 5. I just remember doing it. And she was like, good girl, Katrina. She called me Katrina because she was from Germany.
Right.
But this is so important to enroll everyone in the home so they can learn together, contribute together. When we eat, how much is enough? This overeating. People who overeat are usually not eating nutrient dense food. And the body's saying, give me more, give me more, give me more. It's fascinating, the whole psycho-emotional piece around it.
It's all
Especially if you
connected.
weren't, yeah, especially if you weren't breastfed, you didn't get the colostrum, you didn't get those first immune factors. I'd love to see some studies.
Right.
I'd love to, and I'm training more doctors, so I'm hoping that that's going to happen.
That's a good thing. They need the
Yeah.
awareness and the training to understand this. And one of the things you just brought up is the idea of when you eat. And now I want to talk about when to do colonics, because when we met, I was out there with my friend and she said, I'll come in. You said, well, it's winter, wait till the spring. You told her, hold off a little bit. Can you go into why you told her to do that?
Well, I'll just reference Zach Bush again because he's bringing this back to consciousness, and it's the grandmother's wisdom. So there's a book that I love from years ago called Staying Healthy with the Seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it was published probably back in the 50s or 60s. It might still be available. It was full of recipes for winter, spring, summer, and fall. This is crock pot time, okay? It's still snowing where you are, Casper.
It's cold.
It's cold. And
It's
even
cold.
in Florida, people think, oh, you can, eat raw food all day long. I ate raw food and gained 20 pounds in 6 weeks. And that's a whole nother story. You can interview me on that later. If we will simply eat seasonally and locally and follow the cycles of nature, health can be regenerated. Soups, stews, warm teas, warm water with lemon, no
Mm.
ice in your drinks. It's winter still, even though this is spring equinox, the weather is still like winter. So the best time for cleansing is going to be when that frost is over. In Switzerland, they never start planting till Pentecost Sunday, which is in May,
Mm-hmm.
because they have long winters. So their spring is until May. We had 85-degree weather for 4 or 5 weeks, unseasonably warm, and then boom, it dropped to 65. Now I was eating fish with my veggies when it was 85, but I brought that crock pot out right away, started the bone broth, made the stew when the cool weather came. So cleansing is regional.
Mm.
It's going to depend on where you are and how you can carve out a week, because you need a couple of days to prepare, start reducing the quantity of the food, half what you normally eat. Start your crock pot, make your bone broth or your veggie broth. Hopefully, if you're making veggie broth, for the vegans, I want to say that putting in mushrooms and seaweed will
Mm-hmm.
give you what you need in the broth. Okay. I have 2 crock pots that go when I'm teaching, because I often have vegans and then I have those who aren't. So I have a meat bone broth and then I have the vegan broth that I can offer. Ease into it. When you're doing your cleanse, block 3 days and tell your family, I'm off duty. No laundry, no homework. Don't ask me anything. Better yet, go somewhere. Rent an Airbnb with a kitchen. Little efficiency is all you really need because you can freeze all of this. I'm going to teach how to make pureed soups. We do this at every group. Tomorrow I'll be doing this with Zach Bush's group. I do a white soup, a green soup, and an orange soup. So I have different varieties every day. Herbs from the garden, lots of turmeric, curry, ginger, warming. Nothing leaves your stomach till it reaches 98.6. So if you are drinking iced tea or iced water with your meals, your stomach's going to hold that food longer and longer and longer and try to warm it up. And it's taking the energy from your spleen and your kidney to do that. So in order to keep your organ systems strong, I can remember my first acupuncturist, Cathy Shea, Chinaman. You eat raw food all day long. I said, yes, sir. And he said, you never see a Chinaman eat raw food. He may stir fry. No more raw food, Miss Cathy Shea. I went from raw to macrobiotic. You can't have any more extremes.
Right.
I went from eating everything uncooked to 90% cooked with a few pickles and sauerkraut for my ferment. I lost all the weight that I had gained eating raw food. The water that I was retaining because my kidneys were weak drained out of my body. And I began to understand why I shouldn't have colonics in the winter, or at least cleansing time in the winter. So as soon as your weather breaks up there, tell that beautiful lady of yours, go into the city and look for Alexandra DeFaccio at Green Star Wellness, and she'll have a beautiful experience with this shamanic Brazilian goddess. Alexandra is amazing. She'll do it in the warmer weather when it's easier for the body to let go because you want to engage sweating. So we mentioned detox pathways. The sweating is the most efficient because we have more pores than anything. Thousands, maybe millions. Nobody can count these. It's just impossible to know. So you want to be sweating, urinating, defecating, pushing the liver with a little bit of dandelion tea. It also pushes the kidneys. Get lymphatic drainage. Do some trampolining if you can't find a lymphatic drainage person, or just walk real fast, swinging your arms. That's what I do. And swim. I'm a mermaid.
Wonderful advice. I mean, all of these things are things we really overlook, I feel. And they are somewhat simple, right? Again, I agree with you. I think going by nature, it's interesting. I've always had these discussions with people that really follow nature and are in health about we are mammals and we don't hibernate at all. We don't even slow down the winter. We just keep it one pace of go, 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 right? Eat whatever you want all year long. Probably crap. Go keep stressing throughout the winter and not slow it down. Don't change anything throughout the year. I believe it was T.S. Wiley who did research into it, said we're aging almost 4 times as fast because of this, because we don't have these cycles anymore. Everything's just on top gear, just revving, and we burn out. So I really appreciate the wisdom you're sharing, because it's so common sense, I would say, but also against the grain of what most of us do every day. So, do you have any final thoughts that you could share with us before I ask where they could come see you and learn more?
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Casper. I would encourage everyone to carve out 5 minutes every day, first thing in the morning especially, to just sit quietly and breathe. And let that breath go to a point between your belly button and your pubic bone. It's called the lower dantian. And it's an important place to expand and let it come back. As you breathe in, you should feel that part of your belly expand and relax. I can promise you when you make this commitment, not if, when you make this commitment, because health is all about a decision first and a commitment second, and then you take action. This action, this one action of breathing into your belly for 5 minutes before you jump out of bed, run to the coffee machine or whatever it is you do first. Make this a gift that you give to yourself. I close with a reminder. We can go weeks without food, days without water. We wouldn't last very many minutes without the breath. Thank you again. Great
Beautifully
honor to
put.
be with you.
I love that, Cathy. And now I got to ask, where can people learn more about you, get in touch with you, become a student?
CathySheaSchool.com. CathySheaSchool.com. I also have a Cathy Shea School YouTube channel. If you go to the playlist, you'll see recipes, how to make the soups I mentioned. I figured out how to do a coconut yogurt, because Thomas says that no dairy, don't eat dairy. So we make yogurt out of, the coconut cream that I buy at the ethnic shop. They have 70% coconut water, nothing else. So my door is open to all of you. It doesn't matter where I am on the planet. Thanks to WhatsApp, I can do Zoom. I can connect with you. Call me at 561-775-9912. Leave a message for Lisa, our beautiful manager. She celebrates 20 years with us this month. My right arm, my left arm, my backup, no matter what's going on. She's dynamite. So by all means, be willing to make the decision, make a phone call, let us help you make a commitment, and coach you how to take action. I also want to give a shout out to one of my gals who is up in New Hampshire at concordcolonic.com. Her name is Ann Kennedy. She does nutritional coaching on Zoom. And she's a dynamo. She's on track with me to become an instructor, because I'm looking for younger people who can carry my flag. I'm going to croak, but the school's got to go on. That's all there is
You
to
got
it.
plenty of time still, I'm sure.
I know
70 is the
you're
new
right.
like 40 or so, right? So
From your lips to God's ears.
Cathy, thank you so much for sharing this message, sharing so much of your wisdom and the work you do. Please do give Dr. Rao a nice hug when you see him. I know you're going out there to see him shortly.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, and thanks so much for
And
spending this time and sharing with us.
it's an honor and a privilege, Castor, and I salute you for what you're doing in the world, getting the word out.
Thank
And
you.
greetings to all your family. One of these days, I'm going to come up and train your father's team and get colonics in your father's clinic.
Please. I'll stay after a little bit, and we'll talk about that as well, because I have some things to talk about that. But thank you again. In a quick recap, alternative therapies like colon hydrotherapy are often misrepresented and misunderstood by the mainstream. So hopefully, Cathy was able to clear up some confusion and dispel many of the myths and fears surrounding this truly innovative therapy. Until next time, continue writing your own healing story.